He leaned forward when he saw her, not startled, just still. She smiled like she already knew how this moment would unfold. And I did too, because this time I wasn't just watching from Thejas. I was part of it. She stepped closer, steady, certain. And he didn't speak. He didn't need to. Before I tell you what shifted when Chef Noe sat down, tap like and hit subscribe. This story only gets more layered from here. His hand brushed lightly against the back of my leg as I leaned over sink. Not rushed, not forceful. Just a steady reminder that he was behind me, present, attentive. I didn't pull away. The water still ran over my fingertips, the dishes momentarily forgotten. As the quiet weight of his presence settled on me, the edge of my robe had loosened slightly as I bent forward, and he felt the faint shift in air as he stepped closer, calm, wordless, certain. I turned my head just enough to catch edge of his. Smile reflected in Thuendel. "You're up early," I said. "So are you." His voice was low and soft with sleep, barefoot, still carrying the quiet warmth from the night before. No turgent, not lingering, just there. But something else moved beneath it now. A quieter charge, not pressure, not hurry, just waving. I dragged my hands and turned around. He stood so close I had to tilt my chin to meet his eyes. Hadn't moved, didn't blink, just held my gaze, steady and curious. "I've been thinking," I said. He raised a brow, half amused. "That's dangerous." I smiled. "Maybe, but not as risky as the thing yodeled me once. That little idea you mentioned." His face didn't change, but I saw something shift in his breathing. "He wasn't sure if you meant it," I said, stepping closer. "But I think you did." Hadn't reply. "I made a call," I said quietly. "She's coming tonight." The silence that followed didn't feel heavy, just full. The kind of pause where everything settles before it moves. "She," he repeated. I nodded. "The one you asked about. The one you didn't think I'd agree to." I let that settle between us, not teasing. Just true. His shins lifted and rested gently at my wrist, but he didn't draw me in. Hess stayed where he was, eyes on mine. "Tonight," he said. "Only if you want it," I answered. "But I think we both already know." I let that be the last thing I said before stepping past him, quiet, barefoot, across the tile. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I heard his footsteps behind me before I reached the bedroom, slow, barefoot, following. I didn't turn around. The fabric of my robe shifted slightly as I walked, moving with me. The air brushing along my back, quiet and cool. I knew he noticed. I wanted him to. The door clicked softly behind us. He stood in the doorway, arms relaxed at his sides, gaze steady on mine. "She knows what a night is," I said, settling on the edge of the bed. "And she knows what I isn't." He didn't speak, but something in his expression shifted, like he was holding back more than words. "She's here because I asked her," I continued. "That's what you wanted, isn't it? To see what I'd do? If I ever really meant it." I saw it then. The smallest change in his posture, a breath held just a little longer, still no reply. I stood and walked toward him. Slow, deliberate, never breaking eye contact. When I reached him, I didn't touch his chest. I lifted my hand to the door frame behind his shoulder and leaned in close enough for only him to hear. "She said she's wearing the red one," I said quietly. "The one you once said looked like me even though you'd never seen me in it." He turned his head slightly, the space between us narrowing. Not touching, just still. And I stayed there for one long moment, watching the change behind High's eyes. Not urgency, not confusion, just recognition. "She'll be here in 20. I said, "You can't stay. You can. Listen, or you can leave." I reached for his hand, slow and certain, and guided him toward the armchair by the window. "If you stay," I added, pausing just before he sat, "you'll let it unfold without changing its course." He lowered himself into the seat, not as a response to me, but as if decision had already been made long before this moment, and I let him. I stood just behind him as the clock ticked down. His hands rested on the arms of the chair, unmoving but neutralized. His breathing shifted, not faster, not louder, just deeper in a way that filled the room. And I knew he was holding still on purpose. Because this time he wasn't the one setting the pace. I stepped toward the mirror and paused, pretending to adjust my posture, smoothing the fabric along my shoulder. I didn't have to glance behind me to feel it. His focus followed, quiet, constant, then a soft knock. I didn't speak. I only turned once, just to nod to see if he would look. He didn't, Booth's jaw tensed, his fingers curled slightly along the edge of the chair. I opened the door. She stepped, in like she already knew where the center of their room was. She didn't hesitate. Red dress, hair down, back straight. Her eyes, steady, unreadable, met mine without delay. We didn't say a word. She didn't ask anything. She didn't need to dodge. She moved toward me with a kind of stillness that didn't break the air, like every step had already been decided. And when she stopped, we were standing close enough that I could feel the warmth between us. The first thing I noticed was how calm she was, not shy, not bold, just certain. She tilted her head slightly, waiting maybe, or watching, and I let that moment stretch between us. Then I leaned in, not all the way, just enough to feel the edge of what wasn't being said. My breath paused and hers did too. I raised my hand and brushed a loose strand of hair behind her shoulder. Not rushed, not careful, just present. We didn't close the space completely. Not yet, but the silence added. The room didn't move. Not because it was still, but because none of us wanted to be the first to look away. When I finally did lean forward, I let my forehead rest gently against hers. Not a kiss, not a signal, just contact, quiet. And she let it happen. Not with a word, just by staying right there. I didn't look toward him, but I didn't leave too. His presence was still there, steady behind us, not loud, but felt taut, and we let it stay that way. Her hand reached for mine the moment the door clicked shut. No hesitation, no question. Her fingers found their place just above my hip. Calm, steady, warm through the fabric. Not rushed, not cautious, just certain. With her other hand, she reached for the back of my neck and leaned in close, her forehead resting lightly against mine as our breath found the same rhythm. There was no pause this time, no lingering glance, only closeness, complete and undivided. I felt my breath catch as she leaned in farther. And when our lips touched, it wasn't tentative. It was short, not dramatic, not restrained. Just the kind of nearness that speaks without needing to explain. The kind that simply fits. Behind me, I could feel his presence like the quiet weight of a thought, still and silent. But I didn't turn. I didn't need to, because whatever lived between us in that moment wasn't looking outward. She shifted her hands to my waist, gathering the edges of my robe, one side at a time. She eased it open, not to reveal anything, but to let it settle more freely. Her palms moved along the fabric as it slipped from his shoulders and down my arms, the cooler air brushing the places she had touched. I shivered, not from chill, but from how present I felt. She noticed and without a word pulled me gently to her. Her lips grazed the edge of my cheek and her arms came around my back like an answer. Andy. Stayed there, held, recognized. I lifted a hand to the back of her dress and found the zipper, easing it down slowly as our breaths stayed steady together. The sound of the fabric loosening felt almost deliberate. As it softened around her sides, she stepped in closer. The outline of her figure felt more sensed than seen. The warmth between us folding inward. My fingers bows near her shoulder blades, resting there with no urgency. There was no goal in it, just a stillness that filtered. She let me guide her a step back, easy and balanced, until the edge of the bed pressed lightly behind her. She sat, her eyes still locked with mine. A soft smile met her lips, not mischievous, not shy, just true. She reached upward, not to pull me, but to remind me she was still there. And when I leaned forward, our foreheads touched again. I braced one hand behind her as it shifted my weight gently. Our breaths mingled again in the quiet space between us. The distance dissolved, not all at once, but steadily, naturally. I could feel the slight shift in everything around us. The bend of her leg, the stretch across my shoulders, the way we adjusted our balance without a word. It was an effort. It was presence. Everything slowed, not out of caution, but because there was nowhere else to. Her lips brushed along the curve of my collarbone, not with intention, just contact. My fingers threaded gently into her hair as I tipped my head back, eyes fluttering shut. My breath caught in my throat and stayed there. She paused, not to ask, but as if she knew something unspoken had just settled. She stayed close, not moving away, not pressing forward, just staying. Her arms circled me waist again. I reached for the edge of the sheet beside us and held it, not for balance, but for grounding. My body felt lighter than usual, not drifting, just aware. Every part of me tuned to this moment in a way I hadn't known I missed. I found her hand again and drew it back toward me, not out of urgency, but because I wanted her near before theme met. Shifted, because something in that quiet was starting to change. This time, when we kissed, it was slower, more centered. But underneath the quiet, there was a current. We both felt not speeding up, just deepening. She leaned forward just enough. I met her there, our bodies didn't move in unison, but they found their way towards something balanced. Her fingers curled slightly at my sides, my leg folded gently across hers. Together, we shifted closer. Not the read, not still, just enough to feel like the room had loosened its hold onus. I turned my head slightly, just enough to find him again. He had moved, but his expression had. His hands, though, gripped the sides of the chair. His jaw had tightened. His breath visible in flight. I didn't pause. I didn't explain. I held his gaze for just a moment, then closed my eyes again. The room faded at the edges. The sounds grew softer. Everything around me began to narrow to what was right here. The way her hands moved, the steadiness in her breath. The quiet rhythm of being fully seen without being spoken to. I couldn't find words. I didn't need to. My palm pressed flat against her back. She leaned into it, not with effort, but with quiet. Agreement. Every shift in weight made something in me settle deeper. Nothing surged. Nothing crashed. It was just theirs, simple and certain. And when it landed, whatever it was, it didn't arrive with force. It arrived like something I had waited to understand. I exhaled slowly and leaned into her, not to fall, but to stay. My hand reached out beside me, not searching, not looking. Just a gesture. And though I didn't touch him, I felt this presence steady again. He didn't speak, he didn't move, and I didn't need him to. That was the moment he stopped imagining it and started living it. And once it gave him that view, he couldn't look away. Be honest. Do you wish you were there too? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading. And if you haven't already, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. Thanks for being here.